Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for ADT today. Silas is running a little bit late, so I'm happy to help start our meeting off. And I know he said this is actually part two of going over the New Agent Cookbook. So Cav and I are going to kind of help you walk through. And Cav, I see you got that shared on the screen.
Yeah, to get to the cookbook, it's actually through the Learning Center. There's actually a online version of it that you can kind of work through. This is the PDF version. Um, again, I have kind of gone through and looked at this, and I think it's one of the best things that Health Markets has done for new agents to kind of give people an idea of what they at least should be doing. Um, and so I'll just kind of pick up where Silas left
Yeah.
off last week because he was kind of going through some of this stuff. He went through the flow chart. And again, just kind of as a reminder, what Health Markets feels is that there's actually three paths that people can take. One is lead focused. That's what a lot of the offices around the country do, and that's where you're buying a lot of live transfers, you're buying a lot of leads, you're licensed in multiple states, and you just sit at the computer all day and you do this online. The hybrid model, that's actually, I think if I had to choose where I'm at, I'm more of a hybrid because I still do take some internet leads. Because as being a trainer to newer agents, I take leads for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's still deals in there. My saying is you got to kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince, but there are some princes in there. And matter of fact, I just sold one the other day. But the other thing too is not only am I taking leads, but I'm actually actively out in the field marketing my business and trying to grow that local practice. And then the final one is the local marketing. Those are the people that are primarily referral based. They don't take any leads at all. We have several tier four agents on our team that they do not take any leads at all. It's all referrals. It's
You're not really marketing,
yeah,
really.
they're not really marketing. Well, they are marketing, but they're doing big marketing like
Right.
billboards and radio ads and stuff like that. And so the whole idea behind this is choose the path that you're the most comfortable with. Now, as for those of you who are new people on here, I think you definitely do need to take some live transfers. I think you do need to take internet leads. Um, but you also need to get your fanny out of your office or out of your home, and you got to start building that local business because one of the things that makes the Jessup territory so different is most of our agents and again, Dan Garrison, the president of the company, has actually confirmed this. But the Jessup territory is the highest. Is we make the most money out of any team in the country. Okay, when you look at all of our agents and you put our incomes together, there's no one close to us. Why? Because most of us do the grassroots. Most of us have a robust local practice where most of the offices around the country, they're just doing this. Again, they're just like most insurance agencies now, they're just sitting at a computer, they're just burning and churning leads, and they're not building that local practice, which allows you to sell more subs, life, build those relationships with people. And so, that's ultimately what we feel you want to go to. So I think, we're kind of training people, hey, initially as a new person, you need to take live transfers, you need to take internet leads so you can get some transactions under your belt, but you also need to start incorporating times in your day where you're out marketing your business so that you start having people come to you. So does anyone have any questions on these three models, or is there anything in the chat, Sandra?
Nothing in the chat right now.
And Cav,
But
I've been able to join, so thank you.
oh, yay.
I appreciate you guys stepping in. I'm sorry my TVP call went a little bit over as well. I do see a
All
little
right.
bit of light participation this morning, and I'm wondering if the link got sent out. I got a couple of people from the Michigan crew. I'm just looking across the board. I don't see anybody from Michigan on here. So I had a Outlook snafu this morning. Sandra, would you have time to maybe?
I will try and send the link out again to them.
Yeah, and I think I think it might be the larger team.
Uh-huh.
So the sales leaders. So I think Gary's team, Tyler's team, Mike's team, and Derek's team. Would
Will
you mind
do.
kicking it out to them? And I can kind of take over from here. Cap, that was a great recap of kind of what we talked about last week. So thank you for that. I didn't honestly want to stop it because you were doing a great job. So I do want to take a moment though, because last week we did work through the mission statement and the business launch planning. And I'm in the interactive version here. Cav was showing you the PDF version. You guys have both that you can actually work with, depending on how you want to access it. So, but I do want to do a little bit deeper dive on some of these because I think one of the things that I'm seeing agents maybe stumble or fall down on is just not doing, regardless of which path they're on, not doing enough activity on that particular path. And so these paths and the data that we put together are built off of what we've seen successful agents do. And so on that lead focus path, the far left-hand column, really the expectation and the thought here is if you're working leads and taking live transfers, you need to be averaging between 40 and 60 live transfers per week. I've talked to a couple of agents here recently who said things like, well, I take a couple a week and they think they're on the lead path. I would just challenge you if you're on that lead path, you've got to figure out how to be taking 40 plus live transfers a week. That obviously requires a financial investment up front, but it also requires, having your leads turned on and being actively engaged and being willing to take those leads for a large swath of the day. Um, you look at the dials here, 250 to 400, 90% of the time is actually on the phone, 10% is actually in the field. And when you think about the people who work leads like this, it's got to be when you kind of think about the scheduling a little bit, mornings and evenings and weekends are probably going to be the times where you're going to be able to connect the most with people. So I think you've got to start early. We've got teams in Florida who start as early as 5 a.m. taking live transfers. And yes, they are flowing um, at that time. I'll tell you right now, we're averaging about 21 or 22,000 live transfers per month that we're actually bringing into the organization. So there is a really high volume out there. If you're struggling to get them, I would say Texas is one of the states where we have the highest volume of live transfers. So if you're not licensed or working in Texas, or if you are and you want to, add that to your portfolio or broaden that out a little bit, you can certainly do that. So there's certainly some opportunities there as well. And then you kind of think about working into the evening. I think if you're going to take live transfers, you've got to have at least a handful of weeknights where you're pounding the phones up until 9 o'clock p.m. in the evening, and then weekends as being available for weekends as well. Some of the success formulas that we put together around this is, answering those calls very, very quickly, using your positioning statement, then moving into the fact finding, then presenting the quotes on the same call. I know we talked last week in our new agent training class a little bit about the two-step approach where we're gathering information and then pausing for a moment and reconnecting with the client either an hour later, a day later, at a later date though, to deliver the solution and kind of explain who we are and what we do. I think that from the agents who work live transfers, you might be able to start off doing that, but very quickly you want to transition to being able to do the entire process in one fell swoop on one phone call. So that is important to get, adept enough at the process that you can do that all very, very quickly. Um, for those of you coming in from Michigan and Indiana and some of the other, I'm sorry, I had some email snafus this morning. I thought the invitation went out to you, but apparently it didn't. So Sandra's been pushing that out. So thank you for that, Sandra. Um, I think if you are going to be following up with people, you want to get very specific about when you're going to be calling them and get them to agree to take your call at that time. I think that's a best practice. And then sending immediate follow-ups via email. We know that live transfer leads are probably a little bit more transient type of consumer. There's someone who's buying, something over the phone, and I think it's really, really important to positively impact the persistency of that business that you're following up very quickly and you're keeping in front of them and you're doing your 10-day, your 30, your 60, your 90-day follow-ups and you're trying to build a relationship as much as you possibly can with them. So, obviously some other key strategies that we put into the mix. You got to be cranking in the mornings on this. So obviously, lifestyle is important to be able to get up and do that. Google reviews are really, really important in our business, no matter which path you're on. And so figuring out how you can ask for Google reviews is a part of that process. Treat every lead as a referral source. Practice objections daily and role play weekly. At the end of today's call, I'm going to make some announcements about some additional enhancements that we're making to the new agent training assistance. And we're going to be incorporating some more role playing in some of the things that we do because I think role playing really does help you as a newer agent or maybe an agent who's not quite adept yet at doing what we do. Really gives you some opportunities to practice. And so we're going to be building some of that in. If you're on this path, though, you got to think about these key metrics: number of transfers, how many appointments, and how many sales you're trying to make, and that with that target being 50 live transfers per week. That's not an easy thing to do. Justin and I have talked about that here recently, that it's not an easy thing to do to get 50 or a week or 200 a month. But I will tell you, especially getting out of the gate as you get started, remember that you have a 50% lead rebate with health markets. So in those first 6 months as a new agent, you can tap into that 50% rebate, which significantly reduces the cost to you. And I think right out of the gate, if you're on this path and you're going to work live transfers, you've got to be thinking about how can I work really, really hard to be getting 50 plus leads coming in per week. The numbers and the data shows that if you can do that, the rest will fall into place for you. Obviously, if you can do more than that, even better, right? The hybrid model is more for agents who want income diversification, enjoy variety, prefer building local relationships while also using that lead support. So you're going to take a few less live transfers, that 25 to 30 range per week if you're on this particular path, a few less phone dials at 150 to 250 a week, 60% on the phone, 40% in the field, and you're going to start incorporating some other things like networking events and reaching out to your centers of influence and having a robust process for that. Obviously, the COI, as we think about that, those are people who know you, like you, and would like to see you be successful, and really leveraging that warm market. So I think you have your personal COIs, and then you also have professional COIs that can be cultivated. And we think about professional COIs. This is relationships with financial planners, CPAs, attorneys, HR professionals, property and casualty insurance agents. It's really working to develop that kind of relationship. This is a little bit more of a balanced schedule. 8 to 12 morning calls, getting out in the field in the heat of the day, and then coming back and working the phones for a little bit in the evening. Um, I think if you're on this path, you've really got to balance that idea of when is my field time and when is my phone time, and have very definitive blocks in your schedule of phone time and field time so that you can balance those two really important components. Um, you can see that some of the hybrid uh, success keys that we built out were to that don't mix the phone and field work. I think those have to be two uniquely different times, and you're focusing on different activities within those. Um, Track which resources or which sources produce your best results. Batch similar activities together. So if you're doing phone work, you're taking live transfers, but you're also making outbound phone calls to leads that are coming in and following up with prospects and referrals and walk and talk follow-ups and things like that. If you're working the phones, you want to work the phones and have your live transfers turned on at the same time so that you're really making good usage of that time. And then when you get into the performance tracking, we're targeting around 40 live transfers per week, which hopefully will drop down into a handful of sales every single week. And then the last path is that local marketing grassroots path. And I will tell you, this is Cav mentioned is the one that we are the best at as a territory and as an organization. This is dialing back those live transfers a little bit, but really working on getting your information out to 200 to 300 people minimum every single week. We call this direct contacts. Kind of the definition. I'm going to mute. I think Adriana was not muted there, so I'm going to mute her. But I think you've really got to figure out and think about how many people are you going to get your information to each week. Steve preaches this again and again. I think if you're on this particular path, you have to have a robust approach to getting your information out to people, whether it's, direct local marketing, whether it's texting, emailing, whatever that is, walk and talks, a variety of ways you can get your information to people, but you have to be planting hundreds of seeds per week to have this really come together. Obviously, you can back down the phone dials a little bit, but you still got to be heavily involved in the COIs, the networking, and those local marketing. And this is really a situation where you're spending 60% of your time in the field and only 40% of your time on the phones. I do think Steve and I were talking yesterday a little bit about if you're struggling in your business, one of the best things that you can do is a time study for 1 week of what you're accomplishing with your week. I've done this multiple times throughout the course of my career. I think it's really a helpful thing for agents to do and focus on. But if you could just take all of the time that you're working in a week, keep it on a paper planner or somewhere where you can jot it down and just write down what you did every 30 minutes and what you accomplished with that 30 minutes in the business. I will tell you, it is an eye-opening exercise to go through for anybody, regardless of where you're at in the business. And it will help you understand where you're losing time and where you're less effective. It's easy to be busy in our business, but we measure ourselves in this business on outcomes, not on effort and not on activity even, right? It's got how many people did you get your information to? How many appointments did you set? How many deals did you close this week? I mean, there's some really, really important metrics. I call them critical measures of success that you've got to be focused on. And I do think a 1 week time study can really open your eyes to where you stand on that. When we think about this marketing path, this grassroots path, this really does involve a lot of field marketing, getting out in the field. And I think you should peg this. I mean, you're looking at close to 3 days, 20 to 24 hours a week of field activities. So that's walking and talking, 12 plus hours visiting local businesses, dropping off information, collecting business cards, and then doing the follow up. We'll dive a little deeper into that in just a moment. Trying to get a minimum of 6 face-to-face client meetings, getting involved in networking. So, getting involved in a BNI or become a member of your chamber and engaging in their business after hours and the different things that they host. SHRM and NABIP. SHRM is the Society for HR Managers. It's a great place to begin to build relationships with HR professionals who can then refer business to you. And then NABIP is the National Association of Business and Insurance Professionals. I think that's the new acronym for them. That's another organization that's local that you can begin getting involved with. And there's a lot of others as well. Those are just some examples of ways you can get out there and begin networking and building relationships with people. We talk about wearing your jersey and leaving a trail, letting everyone around you know who you are and what you do, and actively working to leave marketing materials wherever you can. So just as you're living your life, watching for community boards and retail locations and farmers markets. Apartment complexes typically have community boards where you can put information up. Retirement communities, gas stations, restaurants, laundromats, all those types of locations that have places where you can kind of leave a trail and leave your information behind. And then actively engaging with those COIs, like we mentioned, the financial planners, P&C agents, accountants, CPAs, attorneys, HR professionals, and local non-for-profit organizations. So this is a more granular, robust approach of building your local brand in your local community. But this is what many of the top agents on our team have found success doing. But the problem is I talk to a lot of agents who say they're on this path, but they're not spending 3 days a week out in the field marketing their business. So I think as you kind of work your way through this new agent cookbook, you've got to be thoughtful about, am I doing enough for whatever path I'm choosing to be on? And this is where I think all of you could go back this week and kind of just reevaluate that and say, am I actually doing what's suggested? Am I hitting the right metrics and the right numbers, or not? And if not, what do I do to tweak that starting next week? So we did build into this tool our walk and talk process. This is something that I developed with the help of many of our top agents over the last number of years. I will tell you, if I was a new agent today, getting started in the business, I would be walking into several hundred small businesses a week and implementing this robust walk and talk follow-up process. This is how I started my business 25 years ago. And this is a, a, a very aggressive way of getting out there and engaging with small business America. And not only engaging with them, but then implementing a robust follow-up process, getting them into your CRM, and beginning those drip marketing techniques. Because the more we can keep our information in front of people, the more opportunities we're going to have as they experience those trigger events. I always say that this is a timing business above all else. And what I mean by that is a consumer does not need you until they experience a trigger event. So we really want to market to those trigger events and get our information in front of hundreds and then thousands and then tens of thousands of people over time. So obviously the first step of a walk and talk is simply walking in. Um, I don't, when I'm walking and talking, it's not about having a robust conversation. It's not about asking for the owner and waiting for the owner to show up. It's really about walking in, trying to be non-intrusive and dropping off information and trying to pick up a business card and move on. If I have the opportunity to engage with someone there or they ask questions, I like to ask the question and I do a quick introduction. My name is Silas Jessup. I own a local health and life insurance agency, and I was just dropping off some information for your business about our programs for small business owners. I don't know anything about what you guys have going on. Are you happy with your current insurance situation? That is the question that I'm asking if I have an opportunity to engage. There's a lot of times I'm not even asking that question because I'm not having a conversation. I'm literally dropping off information, picking up a business card, and moving on. But if you do have an opportunity, that's a great question to ask because they're going to say one of two things. They're either going to say, yes, we're happy, or no, we're not. If they're happy, I think you can ask for permission to contact them this fall when we come into the next open enrollment season, because that's when they're going to have an opportunity to make some changes and may have some disruption or some volatility with their current plan. If they're not happy, obviously, then we know where to take that. We're going to gather some information and try to schedule an appointment or ask them if we can call them back when we get back to the office. Those are really, really hot leads when they say, no, actually, we're not happy and we'd like to talk, right? So the whole idea is you're going to leave professional materials and try to grab their business card. Now, if you walk into 100 businesses, you're probably not going to collect 100 business cards, and that's okay. You're going to leave behind 100 pieces, but you may only end up picking up 50 or 60 actual business cards. That's okay. Some people get stressed out about that. I don't think you need to. If a business card's readily available, grab it. If it's not, leave information and move on. There's still value in that engagement and that interaction. Um, and then probably the most important piece of this then is your follow-up. What I would recommend that you do at the end of each week is take those business cards and enter them into your CRM one at a time. What that does is it stacks them up in the new lead portion of your funnel so that when you start making your phone calls the next week, you have a lot of businesses that you walked into the previous week that you can now do a walk and talk follow-up call to. So that would be the first thing that I would do is the first part of the next week I'd call and I'd say, hey, Sandra, my name is Silas Jessup. I stopped by your business last Thursday afternoon and I dropped off some information about our health insurance programs for small businesses. I actually own a local health and life insurance agency, and I just wanted to follow up and see if you guys are happy with your current health insurance situation. So again, I'm just reaching out. Oftentimes, I'm leaving that type of scripting in a voicemail if I'm not catching someone. That's okay. I don't chase these walk and talk people unless they told me they want me to, like to follow up with them. Then I'll chase them. But if it's a matter I just walked in, I'm going to leave a message and then I'm going to send them an email. So very similar context as far as the verbiage in the email. Just following up. I stopped by your business last week. I always like to lead with I stopped by your business last Wednesday or last Thursday or last Monday because that shows that you're local and it also perks a business owner's attention. When they hear somebody stop by their business and that's what's being led with, they're going to listen a little bit harder to what you have to say than if you just tell them I'm a local agent and I haven't been to your business. So I think that's important. So I'd send that email. And then last but not least, I would send them a direct mail a little bit later the following week. And there's all kinds of marketing materials. I like the one-page flyers that are a marketing piece on marketing on demand. We get some of those printed, get them shipped to you with all your pretty mugshot and your contact information on them. And I'd say the key pattern interrupt in this is that you should take that business card and staple it to the front of that solicitation so that when you mail it out to them and they open it up, their business card is staring them in the face as soon as they open that. That will create a pattern interrupt, and they will look at it two or three times, trying to figure out where did I meet this guy. Um, and then last but not least, you're going to have that CRM system then drip marketing on these prospects. So once I push them through the sequence of the follow up, then I'm going to disposition them in the CRM as no sale because I haven't sold them anything.
I had no idea my super chewer needed cog.
I'm going to mute you, Kevin. So keep them in they're going to stay in your CRM, even though you disposition them as no sale. And now, depending on how you have your follow-up drip email campaign set up, they're going to continue to get frequent emails from you. I'll tell you, I've had a number of sales over the years where I've actually, somebody's called me. I'm like, how'd you hear about me? And they say, you've been emailing me for a couple of years. And I go in and I realize it's actually been a lot longer than a couple of years. They've been in my system for a long time. And they just experienced that trigger event that made them think of me. So if you can start building your database with hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of local small business owners through this walk and talk process and then begin that drip email campaign, business will come out of that. I would also, last thing I'd say about walk and talks is that as you're walking and talking, I think you should also be actively watching out for those community boards. There are community boards throughout the community and throughout the business that you're walking and talking. Again, think about small restaurants, laundromats, grocery stores, gas stations, those types of locations. Many of them do have the community boards. And I think there's two options and two opportunities with those community boards. Number one, you can put up your information, maybe a couple of business cards, a couple of marketing materials, fanned out, variety of ways you can present your information on there. But number two, you can take your phone and snap pictures of all the other small business owners' cards that are on there and put those cards into the same follow-up sequence. Now, that's going to be more of a community board, so my approach would be a little bit different when I get into my follow-up as far as the call, the email, the direct mail would be the same, but the call and the email will have a little different scripting, and it's going to be simply, "Hey Steve, I ran across your business card at the 7-Eleven on the north side of Elkhart last week. It looked like you're a self-employed small business owner. I help small business owners with insurance benefits, and I just wanted to follow up and see if there's anything I could do to help you." So again, you can get that person into your CRM, implement that same follow-up process that you do for a walk and talk, and again, build your database with those cards and those businesses. I think if you do this a few hundred times a week, you're going to start to get some traction in your business that you may not have. I will tell you from my perspective, I'm 25 years into this business. If I was starting over right now, I would be sending out this particular I'd be implementing this walk and talk process with the appropriate follow up. I just think it's the most proactive, aggressive way of doing things. We did also kind of embed some walk and talk scripts and some bullet points about ways that you can introduce yourself, um, some closing scripts as well. As far as locations, I don't try to discriminate, but I do think that higher success locations are going to be things like small retail shops, professional offices, auto repair, hair salons and barber shops, restaurants when they're not super busy. Um, I don't think you're going to have as much success in chain stores and busy restaurants and medical offices and government buildings and large corporate offices. So this is more small business America that you're actually targeting with that. So that's really a more in-depth overview of the three paths. Where I would challenge a lot of the agents on the call today is just, are you doing the level of activity that we've outlined? Um, are you getting to those levels? Because I think sometimes people do this, but they do it at such a low level of activity that they're never going to find the success that they need. Steve and I talk about regularly that it does take massive action. It takes a lot of touches to get things off the ground. And so you got to figure out, what can I do to get my information to hundreds of people a week in one way or another? So pivoting over to the positioning statements. So obviously, I believe that positioning statements and fact finding are the two critical pieces of a sales process. And I'm of the opinion that you can use them interchangeably. Like, it doesn't matter which one you do first. If you want to do fact finding first, then moving to your positioning statement before you deliver the solution, that's fine. If you want to do your positioning statement first and then do your fact finding and then move into delivering a solution, that's okay too. It's really just a matter of how you approach this and what feels best to you. I will say that it's probably a little bit different if you're doing a live transfer versus an in-person face-to-face meeting on how that might flow. But but I do think the positioning statement, the fact finding are key pieces of this. Um, Obviously, the key tenets of a positioning statement are introducing yourself, explaining how we help clients, explaining the breadth of our portfolio. This is where we want to plant seeds for future conversations about life insurance and disability and long-term care insurance. Um, Explain to them that we're custom designing solutions and we're pulling different pieces from different places to custom design that solution, and then making sure that they're comfortable and their questions are answered, and that they're agreeing to move forward before you kind of move from that situation. We've got some different scenarios, whether it's follow-up calls, referral calls, callback appointments, and some bullet points kind of around those. And then we also built in some common objections and potential responses that you could use. So I'm not going to read through all of those, but they are a part of the actual cookbook. Then we move into our fact finding. And again, there's multiple ways that you can obtain a fact finder. And embedded in here are direct links to either paper fact finders that you can order on Marketing on Demand. If you click on this, it's going to port you out to Marketing on Demand. We also have our downloadable PDFs. So these are the Health Markets fillable fact finders. And this one here is actually one that Daniel Smith uses for live transfers. So this is the health markets version. This is the fillable version from Daniel Smith. Um, and then we also have an electronic fact finder that is embedded in Agent Connect. And there's actually a video here on how to use that. When you're engaging with the consumer, you can jump right into that electronic fact finder and begin to ask the right questions to gather the information you need to be able to make an expert recommendation. There are five big questions that are important to embed in this fact finding experience that you're delivering. Number one, tell me about your family situation. That really kind of opens things up and gets them talking a little bit. Number two, what's your biggest concern about insurance? Number three, what happens if you get sick and can't work? Do you have an emergency fund? Do you have a plan in place for this? Number four, how much are you comfortable spending each month on the solutions that we're going to build for you? And then last but not least, if I can show you coverage in your budget that fits your needs, are you ready to move forward today? Just kind of, testing their commitment and identifying whether or not they're ready to make a decision. Just because they're not ready to make a decision today doesn't mean that you don't continue the process with them, but it's a good understanding for you to kind of understand where this conversation is going to go. And then we also have some different responses and how we can address those as well. Things like, I can't afford more than X. I need to think about it. I need to talk to my spouse. And then we delved into some more advanced fact-finding techniques. So these are kind of embedded here, and you guys can work your way through them as well. Obviously, big mistakes in the fact-finding process is rushing through questions, accepting the surface answers, or not listening actively. This should be something where I've always said it's like a good date. You want to make sure that you're engaging and you're asking questions in a way that it continues the conversation. We also then have our technology set up as a part of this. Remember, this is a new agent cookbook, and for many new agents getting off the ground, it's important to make sure the technology is set up and that you've got those ducks in a row. So we've got the Agent Connect CRM. There's a micro learning on that, so a learning path that you can go through, and this is where you would launch it directly here. And then we also have a walkthrough video. So if you're just getting familiar with the Agent Connect CRM, there's a video you can actually watch that does a really good job of kind of explaining the components of that. And then we have Quote Connect. Obviously, you guys are familiar with this. It does integrate with Health Sherpa for ACA plans. I think most of our agents heavily use Quote Connect. We've got Marketing on Demand, where you can custom design all of your marketing materials. And then we really, as new agents are getting started, think you need to establish a launch date and then make sure that you've knocked out these 6 activities and you have the ability to actually check these off as you kind of work through them. As far as the sales process, Daniel Smith has done a very good job of laying out what that process might look like. And I think all of you just need to hone and refine your sales process and make sure that it is a good one. Daniel suggests starting with the fact finder and then getting into building a quote and then presenting the solution and then closing the deal. He also suggests you complete the supplemental application first, then obtain the ACA consent form, then go through the health insurance application. Then you're going to send your follow-up email, enter your notes into the CRM, and schedule the appropriate follow-up call. So this is a very nice flowchart and 10-step process for live transfers. We actually have the checklist here as well. So if you want to print this and use it and have it laying on the desk next to you as you're making calls, perfectly appropriate to do that and use what Daniel and his team actually use. And then after you've made that sale, it's really important no matter what kind of lead that was, whether it was a live transfer or a referral or a personally developed lead, you want to make sure that you have a very well thought out post-sale follow-up process. I think a recap email makes a lot of sense. I think thank you cards, utilizing our automated system. If you've got your corporate bundles turned on inside of the CRM, you actually have follow-up emails that are going out that are thank you emails and then follow-up emails, after that sale has actually been made. And then obviously you begin to implement your 30, 60, 90-day follow-up calls as well. Sandra?
Question. So why do the supplemental application first before the health insurance application?
Because number one, that's what you're going to get paid the most on. Number two, that's what's going to accrue FYCRs for you. You want to get that piece out of the way. It's actually probably the simplest of the two to do as well, because with most GRIC applications, you can use the security question and just knock it out in a few minutes. If you're going for a little bit higher level amounts, there may be some medical questions and things that are asked on that if you're doing non-guaranteed issue products. So you want to get through that, I think, first, and then you're moving into the ACA. Getting that consent form and moving into the ACA application. So,
Right.
uh,
Your supplemental application process is going to be a little bit simpler and easier for your client to go through, a better experience to start out with too.
yep, agreed. So we have an overview of that recap email that you want to send out very quickly. Um, you'd want to include your policy summary with the premium amounts. You can attach the plan brochures and benefit guides, provide your information, and then set the expectations for your insurance card delivery, which is usually 7 to 10 days. And then sending out handwritten thank you cards. I've always done this. Most of my sales are people that are referred to me, so I'm sending a thank you card to the new client, and I'm sending a thank you card to the person who referred them to me. These are handwritten. I'll tell you, mine says the same thing every single time. It says, Sandra, I just wanted to reach out and thank you for your business. If you know of anybody else that we can help, I hope you'll pass our information along. Best regards, Silas. And then we put a couple of business cards and a magnet business card in there as well. Um, so that's important, I think. You can also incorporate the Google review link or a QR code for that in your thank you cards or in a follow-up email. You can kind of think through how you want to do that. But again, that's something I think you want to do after every single sale is try to get that 5-star Google review. And we do them handwritten as well. Um, Best practices show that a lot of agents utilize a 10, 30, 60, and 90-day follow-up. On that 10-day follow-up, this is where you're helping them set up their online member portal, explaining them how to use their benefits, talking about supplemental insurance if you missed an opportunity to sell that on the first round, and then asking for anybody else that they know that might need help. I think that's a really important part of it. The 30-day check-in then is really confirming their satisfaction with the coverage, addressing any questions, requesting that Google review, and then asking for referrals. I will tell you one thing that we have done in our business is we have stopped doing a 60-day policy review because we feel like with the 30 and the 90, 60 just is a lot. So we've pulled this out, but you can use this. And then obviously, I think a 90-day is really important too. So this is where you're preparing them for the upcoming open enrollment periods. You're reviewing plan changes and new options. You're assessing satisfaction with current coverage, and then kind of beginning to plan for that annual review meeting. So all three of these touch points are really important after the sale, or all four of them. You figure out which ones are going to make the most sense for you based on how you want to kind of build things. We all know that referrals are uber important as well. And so I think you've really got to focus on building a referral practice. As you've probably seen in some of my previous recordings and some of the ADT sessions that we've done around how to build a referral practice, I think you have to be referable if you're going to build a referral practice, right? So there's a lot to that. When you think about where you're going to get referrals, obviously happy clients are probably your best source, but family and friends, and then that professional network that we talked about, the doctors, accountants, real estate agents, attorneys, PNC agents, group insurance brokers, financial planners, HR professionals, really working to establish yourself as a subject matter expert with these individuals, and then constantly keeping your information in front of them and sharing pertinent information with them is a way to continue to establish yourself as that trusted advisor. Um, I do think that there's a variety of times when you can ask for referrals. Immediately after the sale is a good one at that 30-day follow-up, and then after resolving issues or helping with claims. A lot of times those are the points where we should be asking, who else do you know? I'd appreciate your referral. Is there anybody else that I can help that's in your circle? We talked a little bit about these Google reviews, and I do think that Google reviews are becoming a bigger and bigger deal. You do want to strike when the iron is hot on these and ask when satisfaction is highest. We have been working really hard, my team, to get to 100 Google reviews this year. We're at 75 right now, but they're 75 5-star Google reviews. And I will tell you, we are getting a handful of new leads coming in just on people finding us online and seeing that we have all these reviews and we're local. So if you don't have a process and you haven't built out a plan around how you're going to obtain Google reviews, that's got to be something that's systematic, and I think you should do it. Obviously, great times are like we talked about, similar to referrals, but immediately after the sale, on that 30-day follow-up, and after assistance with a claim. We also embedded in here various ways that you can request these Google reviews. So it can be a verbal request. Here's some verbiage around an email request with a direct link. And then last but not least, here's a text message that you can potentially use. And these are all compliance approved, and so you can use those as you see fit. I do believe that launching your social media presence is important as you get started in the business. So we have a professional announcement that you can use on LinkedIn. We also have a little more casual announcement that you could use on Facebook. And then if you're on Instagram, there's some things you could do and some verbiage around an Instagram post. And then I also like this idea of reaching out to key contacts and just updating them on what you're doing. This is kind of like the COI letter, but you can do it digitally through Facebook, through LinkedIn, through different social media platforms, to continue to keep this in front of people and let people know what you're doing. We did embed in here some information around FYCRs and the commission structure. So I'm not going to read through this, but if you have questions around what an FYC, a first year commission is, an FYCR, first year commissions rewarded, renewal commissions, how that works, this is a great section of the New Agent Cookbook to kind of work your way through. And then we have our reward factor weightings built into here as well. As you guys know, if you're selling Golden Rule or GRIC, that's going to be the highest reward factor. So any FYCs, first year commissions that you sell on the GRIC platform are going to be weighted 2.85 times, almost 3 times weighting. Life insurance is double weighted. Short-term medical is single weighted, and ACA health insurance has no FYCR weightings to it. So it does not generate FYCRs. So as you're working to get to 10,000 FYCRs and then 50,000 FYCRs and on up the ladder, you're going to do that through your supplemental insurance, your life insurance, your short-term insurance, and eventually your Medicare, because Medicare is also double weighted. ACA plans, if you're just an ACA enroller and all you're doing is enrolling people in ACA plans, you can develop a good base income and revenue stream off of that, but you can't build FYCRs. You can't get to tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 by just being an enroller and not cross-selling into the other product lines. So I think that's important to understand as well. We put some information in here on culture and mindset, kind of what the core values are and why they matter, and things you can do from a professional development perspective. Now, you guys that are on this call are here receiving coaching and receiving training, and I think that's really good. We're going to work a little bit on role playing practice with all of you who are involved in the New Agent Roundtable. I'll kind of announce that in just a moment. I think you've got to be able to do monthly performance reviews and obviously continue to engage in ongoing training at a corporate level. There are key metrics of success that I think each of us has to identify, and these are the metrics that you're going to set goals around and you're going to track. You pick what those are. We have leveraged for many years the performance tracker spreadsheet within our territory to allow agents to build a plan and execute that plan with activity and certain amounts of outbound outreaches and touches and appointments and things. But these are key activities that you should probably be tracking. So how many live transfers did you take? How many outbound dials did you make? How many appointments did you schedule? How many did you actually run or complete? How many applications did you submit? And how many policies were actually issued? Those are 6 really important things to be tracking. You can pick and choose what you want to track in this business. That's the beauty of being self-employed. But those are probably 6 of the most important things that you should have an understanding on what those numbers are at the end of each week, at the end of each month, at the end of each quarter, and the end of each year. And then we built in some review questions. So what was my contract rate? How many appointments did I set versus complete? What was my close rate? Which activities produced the best results? And what needs improvement next week? At the end of every week, we hope to put you in a position, but we're giving you the tools to do this, but you have to be the one to do it. But you want to put yourself in a position that at the end of each week, you can look back at the week and say, what were my goals for the week, both activity and production? Did I hit those goals? If not, why not? And then what am I tweaking for next week? The quicker you can tweak and hone and refine your processes and your systems, the better off you're going to actually be, and the quicker you're going to get things rolling. The last big thing that I wanted to focus on in the New Agent Cookbook is these case studies. I will tell you, these case studies, actually, I think one of you on the call is one of these case studies. So we did protect the innocent by changing names. So this first one is not John Smith, but he is an agent within our territory. And at the end of last year, he was at 750,000 rolling 12-month FYCRs. He actually began in February of 2020. And we laid out what local marketing did he do. He sent 400 center of influence letters to people that knew him, liked him, and wanted him to be successful. He resent that letter 3 months later with slightly different content. He secured a local office within his first year. He sponsored water cups in local coffee shops and bought customers coffee for an hour. He sponsored 2 billboards during his first AEP. He ran an ad in the small local publication called the Coffee News. He did Kroger shopping cart sponsorships, reminder media magazines. He's been a constant fixture at the local fair. He sent elaborate thank you boxes with logos on cookies, pens, fridge magnets, and thank you cards. And he did outreach and engagement with local financial planners, P&C insurance agents, accountants, CPAs, and attorneys. He did take internet leads weekly until his first AEP, and then he took Medicare live transfers during AEP. He approached people who were turning 65 through direct mail, and he averaged about 100 outbound dials per week. He also leveraged social media. And I'll show you, these are very real income numbers for this gentleman. In 2020, he made about 30,000 first year in the business. Then he jumped to 95,000. Then he completely jumped over the 100,000 and went from 95,000 to 220,000 in his third year in the business. Then it went up to 285, then 360. Last year he was at 620,000 in 1099 income. This year he's probably going to be somewhere between 750 and 800,000 as far as what he's doing. So really, really awesome story of what you can build if you do the work. This was another agent from our team, not Sarah Miller, but she's a tier 4 agent with 230,000 rolling 12-month FYCRs at the end of last year. She started in 2016, and she did a lot of the same things that that first agent did, but she was a little more focused on the non-for-profit entities, HR departments, financial planners, accountants. She did some walking and talking and did some of the same things like the coffee news, the health fairs, the county fairs, joined the Chamber of Commerce. She got involved with Council on Aging and asked where she could volunteer. She partnered with local insurance navigators to be a resource, and then she set up tables and volunteered at local food pantries. So she really got into that non-for-profit world. Averaged about 200 outbound dials per week, leveraged social media. This is what her income growth looked like. So started out at 36,000, jumped up to 57,94, and then a big jump to 151,000, 183, 214, 255, eclipsed 302. This year, I know in 2024, her goal was 300,000, and she got to 302. And then last year, she ended up at 315,000. So you can see the residual rolling build that happens if you're building this business right. So that was some breakdown of that particular path. Last but not least, we have the lead agents on the lead focus path. So this is Daniel Smith, and he ran some numbers about over a 2-month time frame. So this is July and August of last year, and what some brand new agents did. And you'll see here, lead cost was not figured in because leads were half off for most participants, and agents did not pay beyond their advanced contributions, most set at 20%. Successful agents were also receiving their agent accelerator lead bonuses, health markets lead bonuses, as well as matching from contributions. So this is an agent who averaged 50 live transfers a week. He wrote 46 subs and life only, didn't include the ACA here. We didn't even count that. His advance over those 2 months was almost $9,000 per month for a total profit per live transfer of about $48. This next agent took 63 live transfers per week, wrote 73 policies, and ended up making $15,000, $16,000 per month over those 2 months. And then the last agent that he highlighted here had 34 weekly average on live transfers, wrote 45 policies, ended up writing more higher dollar business than everybody else, and ended up at, what's that, 16, 17,000 per month. So 123 profit per live transfer. When you look at the same time frame and the low performers, they just didn't do enough. They took 15 and 30 weekly live transfers and really didn't sell a whole lot and were not profitable. When you look at the difference between the high performers and the low performers, you can see the high performers were in this 34 to 63 weekly live transfers, and they were consistently profitable. The low performers were like at half of that number and just they were unable to reach profitability. And so when you think about the performance gap, successful agents handled 2 to 4 times the volume and converted it into consistent profitability. The difference was not market, lead source, or timing. The difference was volume, consistency, engagement, and mindset. And so these were the keys to success that Daniel laid out: full-time commitment, active engagement, seeking support proactively, high volume capacity, solutions oriented mindset, and accountability and consistency. So the core takeaway was that the high performers prove the model works. Struggling agents demonstrate what happens when volume and engagement fall below required standards. So you guys can take a closer look at these, these different pieces of the cookbook. I think that some of the pieces around the case studies are probably the most impactful, honestly. And then we have this last page, which is just kind of final thoughts. So overall, I think I'm very happy with how this tool came out. I would tell you, if you're struggling, if you're underperforming, if you're trying to do something more in the business, I feel like the keys to your success are embedded in this tool, and that you should go back to it and really study it and own it, and make sure that you're building your own personal plan based on the tenets that are a part of this cookbook. Last thing I have for today, and I know we're up against the top of the hour, and I've got an 11 o'clock I've got to jump to, but I wanted to share something with you guys that we've been working on a little bit. Um, and I just want to make sure you understand how much help is out there if you want it. We're implementing some new programs starting next week to help new agents. And so I've kind of outlined these in our new agent training and assistance program document, and I'll be sending this out to everybody so that you have it easily accessible. Many of you know that we have our Monday morning New Agent Roundtable discussion hosted by Sandra and Ridge. Starting next week, we're going to include some role playing in the second half of this session to sharpen your fact finding and your presentation skills. Instead of us just talking to you or answering your questions, we truly want to get involved in some role playing. This came out of some of the work that Justin Wired has done with a number of you, and Ridge Immel had past experience with role playing. I don't think we do enough role playing where we say, here's a situation, let's role play and have a conversation about it. So I'm going to encourage and ask all of you, please plan to jump on next Monday's New Agent Roundtable discussion. It's going to have a little bit different cadence and a little different flavor than we've done in the past. But Sandra and Justin, I think, are going to do some role playing to show you what it's like. And then in the coming weeks, we're going to ask you to get involved in that as well. You guys are aware of the new agent or the agent development training, which we host every Tuesday at 10. I wanted to remind you that we have two separate sessions, which are live transfer training with Justin Wired. It's the exact same login information, but Tuesday evenings from 4 to 7 and Wednesday mornings from 8 to 10. Justin has agreed to allow you to watch him take live transfers and work those live transfers, and those are really, really helpful. We're also launching, starting next week, a new open office hours with Sandra. This is going to be a 1 hour opportunity on Wednesday afternoons for new agents to come in and ask any questions that they might have about anything related to the business. So Sandra is just going to be available on this link. And I would just tell you, if you've got a situation, a question, something you need, you have your new agent roundtable discussion on Monday mornings, and then on Wednesday afternoons, we're making another session available where you can just come in and ask very specific questions, and Sandra can help with that. Ridge is going to be getting involved with that as well. And then for those of you, Cav, is this at 9 on Thursdays? I wasn't sure. I thought it was, but I could be wrong. Or is it 10? Your
It's
SCU?
9 my time, 10 Eastern.
So it's 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern to 11. And this is the Steve Cavajola University. You can gain access to this by hitting 10,000 FYCRs and then being nominated by your sales leader. But we've got some great things going on there. And then last but not least, we're launching a new WhatsApp, a new agent assistance program. And this is a group texting. If you're a tier one agent, I'm going to send an invitation to you for this and get you into this program. It's sponsored on the WhatsApp. So if you haven't downloaded WhatsApp yet, I know many of the people on our team already use it, but if you're in another team, another sales team, or haven't had access to this before, it's just an app you download. And it's designed for new agents who need help or have questions. And so what we're going to do is Sandra, Ridge, Justin, Cav, and myself are going to monitor this. And we want to use this as a vehicle for you guys to reach out and ask questions. And then if you happen to be in a selling situation and you need a quick callback from one of us, we want to set it up so you can put 911 in there, and one of us will then follow up with you very quickly to get your questions answered in the moment. We want to provide more real-time access to help if you need it. And this is from some feedback we've heard from some of the trainers and some of the new agents on the team. So we're trying to do everything that we possibly can to help you guys find success in the business. I hope that you take this seriously. I hope that you build an incredible career with health markets. Many of your peers have done that already. But these are just some of the tools, and I'll be sending this out via email so you guys have access to everything. So I know there was a lot here, and I know we're a couple of minutes over after the 11 o'clock hour. Do you guys have any questions or anything? Or Sandra, was there anything in the chat box that we need to go over before we wrap things up today?
Nothing in the chat. Just manage your mindset, folks.
Manage your mindset. I like that. So, well, I hope you all have a great week. This is the time of year where we have to plow a little harder. We got to plant more seeds. Got to start getting ready for Q4. So, I'd encourage you, don't let up on the grind that has to be a part of your business this time of year. It will pay dividends if you're planting those seeds. Remember, the harvest always comes in a different season than when you're planting the seeds, right? So, get out there and plant those seeds this week. Thank you guys all for being here. I apologize for those of you in Michigan or on some of the other sales teams that maybe didn't get my invite. I am having some email issues, so I'm going to try to correct those here in the next hour or so. Thanks for being here. Everybody take care. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.